if I have 7% and we're figuring out sales tax, what's the rule? Sam?
0.07.
What's the rule, Sam?
The rule, any number in 0, well, like 100% equals 1.
Well, really, it's 7 over 100, which we are dividing by 100, right? Isn't that mental math? Anytime you divide by 10, 100, 1,000, whatever, all you do is move the decimal two places to the what? What? Left. If you're going from a percent to a decimal, there's the rule. Move it two places to the left. So in 7%, the decimal point is after the 7, right? So we go 1, 2, put your decimal point there, and you get 0.07. Let's say I gave you 3.2, and I wanted you to write this as a percent. That is already a decimal, isn't it? They already moved the decimal two places to the right. So how do we change a regular number into a percent? If they moved it two places to the left, Jacob? That's right. So if it's a decimal and you're turning it into a percent, you move the decimal two places to the right. That is the rule. So when you move this, you can see the decimal on this one. You take 3.2 and you've got to move it two places to the right. So what would this be as a percent? What would that be, Haley? 320%. Right. 0.17. 2 and 0.0065 as percents. How do you write 0.17 as a percent? What is that one as a percent? Tessa? 17%. Don't forget the percent sign. 2. How do you write 2 as a percent? Hannah? 200%. And how do we write 0.0065 as a percent? How do you write that one as a percent? Ava? 0.65%. And where you're going to use 0.65, let's say you work at, what is 147% as a decimal? What is it as a decimal, Van? 1.47. What is 9% as a decimal? Seth? 0.09. And what is 12.5% as a decimal? And a lot of people say, but Mrs. Bowen, that's already a decimal. It isn't because it has a percent sign on it, right? So how do you write that one, Rachel? 0.125. Pretty easy, correct? We're going to write 4/9 and 7/4 as percents. Well, we know, what can we do to 4/9? You could first change it to a decimal, couldn't you? And then move the decimal points. But how many of you know, like, you get grades back on your papers, right? Let's say you got a 4 out of 9 on your paper. Is that good? But we want to know what percent it is. Can't we set up a proportion? Make an equivalent fraction? I can set it up as some percent out of, what's percent always out of? 100. A lot of you do not like to divide. Let's be real. So you cross multiply and you get 9p equals 400. Divide by 9. It's going to be a little bit easier for you to do that without a calculator. How many times does 9 go into 40? 4 with how many left over? 4, so I put that 4 there, right? 9 into 40? 4. Well, if I put a decimal point, I'm going to get another what? 4. So it's 44.4%. Repeating. Okay, or you could write 44 4/9%. Okay? 7/4. What do you know if you got a 7 out of 4 on a paper? Big over little has to equal big over little. We know we have more than 100%, didn't we? Now that one's kind of easy to tell, isn't it? But for consistency's sake, set it up as an equivalent fraction out of 100. Here you get 4p equals 700, because I can't guarantee they're going to let you use a calculator on these. Divide by 4. How many times does 4 go into 7? 4 into 7. Once with how many left over? 3. 4 into 30. 7 with how many left over? 4 into 20. So it's 175%. Yep. I like to use p because then I remember my percent sign. And then what'd you get when you cross multiplied?
500.
And then? And what'd you get?
62.5%.
How many of you got 62.5%? It's pretty easy when you have a consistent pattern. Yeah, part over total equals percent over 100. Are there different ways to do these? Yep. So what's missing? The part, the total, or the percent? The part. So we're going to put x over, what's the total? Equals, right? You get 100x equals, what's 1,300 times 18? Jared? 23,400. Divide by 100. And you get x equals 234 people, which I highly doubt. Okay, and then they give you problems like this. 25% of 76. I'm just going to show you these. 110% of 65. These were like the ones that we did in 7.1, right? You could do is over of equals percent over 100, or what does of mean? Multiply. This means multiply, and this is an example of you buying something and having to pay sales tax. You have to pay 7% of $100. Well, what would we do to 25%? Turn it into a... So what is 25% as a decimal? 0.25 of means, and you multiply by 76. That's one way. You could also do is over of equals percent over 100. On the 110% of 65, what does of mean? What is 110% as a decimal?
1.10.
1.10. Do I need to have that 0 on the end? No, because it's called an extraneous 0. I don't care which way you do it. If you do is over of equals percent over 100, or if you change this, these are always going to be multiplying because you have of in there and is always missing. But it's when you throw in the mixture of is missing, of missing, or percent missing is when you might get confused. Okay?